Graças YouTube, eu ame Bergi, que calçariste se allo venteo. Today I'm going to be giving you guys my ancient Greek literature recommendations. Now, before you make any assumptions about ancient Greek literature, it's not the kind of stuffy, difficult to read, totally unrelatable, or boring literature that you might think all classics are, and especially these because these are ancient classics and are thousands of years older. Don't get that into your head. A lot of the books that I'm recommending today are very easy to read and could seem like they fit into more modern literature. Yes, they might sound a little bit older, but that adds to the charm, I think. I also want to preface this by the fact that these were mostly orally told rather than being written down, so we're only privy to a version of the stories being told rather than what might have been the most popular version or the more common version, because we're only left with the fragments or whatever survives to today. So it might not be the complete version, it might not be the version, again, most popular to the time period, but it's the version we have and the version that we know these stories by. So that out of the way, I'm going to start with the first recommendation. And this one I'm pretty sure is the most common entryway into ancient Greek literature because the story is well known, and also it just seems like a very common fantasy. This book that I'm talking about is the Odyssey by Homer. This is pretty much the first adventure kind of fantasy that things like J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings kind of follows, because in this book we follow Odysseus as he journeys from Troy after the Trojan War back home to Ithaca, and it takes him 10 years to get from point A to point B when it should have taken him maybe 2 years at most. So he's blown off course and we're just following him as he encounters different cultures, different peoples, different monsters in some cases. So it's a very known kind of fantasy adventure story, and because of that I think it's very easy for most people to start with when they want to read ancient Greek literature. Yes, it's written in epic poetry style, but it's not as difficult as more lyrical poetry where you kind of need to focus on the meter or whatever. You can just basically treat it as prose. So I think it's very easy to start with, and again, I think this is where most people start with because it does feel like a very more modern fantasy story. And if you've read The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan, the second book in the Percy Jackson series, that book is basically the children's more modern version of the Odyssey. So if you love that, you should love the Odyssey by Homer. I do want to mention that in 2018, the first translation by a female was published, so I definitely recommend that, although I haven't read it yet. When I do, I'll let you know my thoughts, although I probably won't catch any differences, but if I do, I'll let you guys know, because I'm definitely excited to see how this story, which has been translated so many times, is perceived and portrayed by a female, even though it's astounding to me that this is the first time, in 2018 is the first time the Odyssey has been translated by a woman. Like, seriously, this has been available since, what, 800 BCE, so there really should have been a female translation of this story way sooner. But yeah, so the Odyssey by Homer in any of the translations, although I do recommend the one by Emily Wilson, this is the first book I recommend. The next book I am suggesting is Theogony by Hesiod because it is very short. I don't think it is 50 pages, I think it's a lot less, so it'll be easy to get through, and it's a great introduction to the ancient Greek mythology because it's basically just telling you the history and the family tree of the Greek gods. This is written in lyrical poetry style, but I don't think it hinders the reading experience because it is so short. It's not that hard to get through, and again, if you just treat it as kind of more like prose, it's very easy to get through. I mostly recommend this because it is so short and because it deals with a topic that most people at least have some knowledge about, because the Greek gods of ancient Greek mythology are so well known. So it's not really a completely new topic. It's something that you should already know a little bit about, and it would just flesh it out a little bit more for you. The next set of literature I'm recommending is less specific. I'm recommending the tragedies and comedies of ancient Greece. The four main playwrights of this time were Aeschylus, Euripides, Sophocles, and Aristophanes. Out of these, the first three, Aeschylus, Euripides, and Sophocles, they're more so tragedians, while Aristophanes is primarily a comedian playwright. Honestly, the best way for you guys to get into them is just to like get a quick synopsis of any of their plays and see which one is more appealing to you. But that being said, I do have a couple that I personally do recommend. So the first one is Prometheus Bound by Aeschylus. This is a tragedy depicting Prometheus's imprisonment for giving humankind fire. And it just is very simple. There's not a lot of scene changes. We just see him as he's chained to his rock, just telling his story. Another one by Aeschylus that I recommend is the Odyssey. This is the only complete trilogy that survives from ancient times. So if you want something a little bit more complete, this is a great one to start with because we do have the full trilogy. I guess I should mention here that these plays of ancient Greece, they performed 4 plays at a time, 3 tragedies which were usually connected, and then a comedy to kind of lighten the mood up. And yeah, so the only one that we have the complete trilogy of tragedies for is the Odyssey by Aeschylus. This follows the events after the Trojan War, similar to the Odyssey, but we're following Agamemnon and his family as he gets back from the war. This is basically a family drama. There's no other way to say it. There is murder, deceit, matricide, just honestly anything you could ever want from a drama. So I definitely recommend that. Then there are the Theban plays by Sophocles, which follows Oedipus and Antigone. Probably the most well-known out of all of these is Antigone. I feel like a lot of people have had to read it during high school English or something like that. I know I definitely read it at some point in my pre-college schooling. So this follows the story of Oedipus, who was abandoned as a baby because he was destined to kill his father and marry his mother. So his parents, hoping to prevent this from happening, sent him away into the mountains. But of course, you cannot evade destiny, and it happens. And then with Antigone, Antigone is the daughter of Oedipus and his mother wife, and it deals more with her and her brothers after all of these events have kind of gone on. That's usually a good place to start as well with ancient Greek literature. And then as for comedies, I recommend The Birds by Aristophanes. This I also read because of my Promethean dissertation, and it's about a utopian society where 2 Athenians escape Athens because they don't like the political atmosphere there, and they want to start their own society in the clouds with birds. It's a satirical play, so it is quite out there, but it's a bit funny. I think I was actually laughing out loud with how crazy and weird it was. So I think that's a good place to start. But again, what I recommend is just looking at the synopses of these tragedies and comedies and trying to find which one appeals to you the most, because I think that'll be the easiest way for you to get into it. And now the final recommendation I have is a little bit out there. I know not everybody is going to want to read this because it is quite long and it can seem a little dense, but I personally really liked it, but I'm also a nerd about this kind of stuff. But it is The Republic by Plato. This is where Plato uses Socrates to kind of discuss the ideal society and also how it mirrors the three parts of the human soul or mind. I just think it's a great place to start because Socrates is in this, or at least in the translation I read, is super sassy. Like, so sassy, and I think a lot of people would enjoy that. It would kind of push them through the narrative. And also, despite the fact that it is very philosophical in nature, it is quite easy to read. Again, the translation that I read, which I'll have a picture here because I don't remember who the translator was at the moment, though I plan on doing a whole video concerning the Republic, so you'll get it there. But the translator had little breaks within sections, kind of giving you an overview of what will be discussed or what Socrates is saying in the next section. So it does kind of help you wrap your mind around it a little bit more. But honestly, I think just the sassiness of Socrates would be enough to push you through it because it's just amazing. But yeah, those are all of my ancient Greek literature recommendations. Let me know if you have already read any of these or if you, after watching this video, plan on picking any of them up. I would love to hear that because I think ancient Greek literature is something that I think most people find unattainable or something difficult to read, but it's definitely not. It's not like the kind of Victorian classics that are kind of difficult to read. At least because of the translations of these ancient Greek literatures, they are kind of more modernized and they have interesting stories, I believe. So I would love if ancient Greek literature was kind of a little bit more read by everyday people because I think they're great stories. I did plan on making other recommendations videos like this one where I recommend books by Greek authors, books set in Greece, and books inspired by ancient Greek culture or just Greek mythology or culture in general. I don't think I'll be doing it this month because I am slowly coming to the end of the month of March and I don't want to have this carry on too much into the following months. So maybe at this time next year I'll give you more recommendations. But yeah, I think that's everything. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So, thasas doume tin epomeni phora, yasas.